I'm Kevin Devine and this is Devine Encounters. James Max was a semi-finalist on the BBC show The Apprentice. Since then he's carved out a great career for himself on both radio and television. We asked him for a 10-minute interview. James enjoyed it so much he gave us half an hour. So here is part one. Now I do believe I'm going to get lucky here. Mr. James Max.
Hello.
How are you? Kevin Devine for Devine Encounters.
Hello, nice to see you.
I've stumbled across you in a lovely part of London today.
I know, well I'm a little bit early for a meeting, so I thought, well why not? In London we're very lucky, we've got these places, I'll come and have a sit.
Chill out, relax.
Catch up on my tweeting.
Oh, are you a big tweeter?
Major tweeter. Some people say I tweet too much. Can you really tweet too much? I don't think so. But some people say I do, because I have to have two accounts, you see. So I have the James Max, which is where all the real stuff goes on. That's where I get into arguments with people. I got some advice from the great Lord Sugar.
Go on then.
He said that what he does in the morning is that he wakes up and, you know, gets ready and thinks about having breakfast, and then he starts a Twitter row. Then he goes away, has his shower, and then he comes back to see what damage is done. And I thought, well, there must be some method in that madness. There is. So I'm quite good at starting a good Twitter row. So the James Max is where all the Twitter rows happen and the TV commentary and all that. And spotting people like John the Pigeon. I don't know if you've met John the Pigeon.
I haven't met him personally yet.
Have you been following him?
I occasionally dip in and dip out.
He is one of it's Pigeon John, if you're interested.
Okay.
J-O-N. And it just has me howling with laughter. So I don't know who this person is. It's a classic example, in my view, of British humour at its best. This pigeon just goes on and shits on people and things and stuff and notices things, but then has this sort of description mechanism for things that you and I know, except he describes them in a pigeon way.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. Anyway, so that's where all that goes on, and then I have my more official and serious head, which is the James Max LBC. So James Max LBC is where all the radio stuff happens, and the James Max, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm sure you do, is where it happens. I love Twitter.
It sounds as if, I mean, you're taking it into the shower first thing in the morning and checking the iPad, but you mentioned a couple of things there within the Twitter. Sir Alan Sugar, The Apprentice.
Lord Sugar, please.
Oh, I do beg your pardon, of course.
Come on, he has been upgraded.
He's been upgraded, that's right.
Some would say parachuted.
Oh no, he's such an inspirational character though.
He's brilliant. He's got kids talking about business, and if there's nothing else that show has done, talking about business. Brilliant.
Doing it in a different way, and obviously taking you back to them because it sort of launched you into the media.
I suppose it did, didn't it?
And it was that thing that opened the doors. But it's such a great show now, and we're in the middle of the new series. How fondly do you look back on your time now at that?
The way I look at it is that I was in the first series, so it was filmed in 2004 and aired in 2005 on BBC Two, and it was kind of tucked away, and we were juxtaposed between Jamie Oliver on Channel 4 doing his, you know, school dinners and all that sort of thing, and here we were tucked away on BBC Two, and I absolutely loved it. I loved taking part. It was a brilliant opportunity to do something entirely and completely different, something that, you know, just money can't buy. And I think I look back on it very fondly, but I don't think any of us who took part then knew what it was going to turn into. I mean, it's turned into this sort of massive, big event, weekday television where millions upon millions of people watch it. I don't know what the figures are, but 7-8 million people watch it. You know, it really is huge, and it's on BBC One, and it's an anchor programme, and it's really established itself. But at the time, it was kind of tucked away, and it was a bit innovative. I mean, nobody had seen anything like this before. And I look back at it as something that was great fun to take part in. Of course I look back and I think, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, because of course we've all learned what you need to do. So I do watch now, but I do despair slightly that these people who now go on it seem not to have watched any of the previous series to work out, really, I mean, it's not rocket science what you have to do, is it?
I think that, and you've mentioned it has become, you know, far bigger than it has when it first started out. But you got as far as the semi-final.
I did, yes.
You did, so you've done really well. To get on the show is an achievement, but to actually get as far as the semi-finals, and at that point, when
I was never in the boardroom. He never had an opportunity to fire me, really. I kept winning because my strategy was, because you've got to have a strategy in everything, was. the team that argues is the team that loses. The team that wins, he can't fire you.
You actually sound as if you have, well, you obviously have a good handle in business because you were in the city before and you were in property. So how did you find you could bring all those skills to the table at that time? Because the city's cutthroat, absolutely cutthroat.
It is. I think there are broad business principles which exist in whichever you do, and I think initially when we started doing these tasks I thought, you know, flower selling, really? But actually when you strip it back, what are you doing? You are buying something or providing a service and you are trying to create a margin or a profit. There is a difference between turnover and profit. There is a difference between being pushy and arrogant and rude, but being pushy and effective. There are all these things that actually come across in general life. So whatever you do, all the tasks that are being done actually pick up on a very small segment of what happens in real business. And I think that as far as I was concerned, I'd been very lucky that I'd spent 15 years working in, as you say, property, investment banking, private equity, and I'd learned a lot of these things. Sometimes you have to unpick them because you don't expect some of your counterparties or indeed the people that you're working with to lack what I would describe as basic skills. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't then adopt them. So I think it's pretty good at stripping them right back. Some people say, oh, it's a little bit simplistic, business isn't really like that. Well, of course it isn't to an extent because you're creating a TV show. But I do think that when it came to it, as soon as I got my head around it, it took a few weeks, as soon as I got my head around it and I forgot that the cameras were following us and I just got on with it. And you have to be absolutely single-minded and focused. You can't let all the flim-flam that's going on around you distract you. You have to get on with it and you have to play within the rules and just get on with it. But I think as soon as I got there mentally, then I really got into it, and it was great fun. I loved it. Fantastic fun.
And I think it's a great moniker to have, to say you weren't fired. You weren't at the end of the pointy finger from Lord Sugar. And Nick Cure we've met in our time as well. He's a great businessman too. But you used this opportunity, or rather, the media came to know about you and started knocking your door. So what was it like after the show and all the publicity? What sort of things started happening for you?
Well, I think, first of all, we've got to dispel a myth. I know Lord Sugar's written about it and he has his interpretation as to why I decided to take part and all that, which is his view, and that's fine, but it's not the right situation. It's not really what happened. I was in a position where I had to decide what I was going to do with my career, and when you work in an environment, which I did as a partner of a private equity firm, you're tying yourself up for 7 years. And I thought, this is not something I want to do, I need to find something else. But also, when you're in that kind of high element and level of business, then the restrictions that you have over what you can go off and do are quite significant. So I thought, I've really got to do something absolutely and completely different, otherwise I can't do it. So I couldn't just, for example, up sticks and go to another private equity firm without sort of waiting and all that. So I thought, here's a really good opportunity to do something entirely and completely different. And then I had every intention of just going back into business when I finished it. I thought, if I don't get the job, which I wanted, to be honest, I thought, if I don't win, if I don't get the job, I'm going to go back into business. And I did go and see a number of investment banks and property companies when I'd finished, and one of them gave me an offer letter, and we were in their offices, very smart offices in the city, and he handed over a letter and he said, here's an offer. And I was like, fantastic. And he said, I want you to be head of real estate investment banking for the UK. And I thought, that's a good job, I like that. And the money was good and everything was good. And he said, but you'll notice that I've dated it this time next year. I said, well, what's that all about? And he said, I heard you on Radio 4 the other day, and I think you'd be really good in radio. Why don't you go off, either get it out your system, or see if it works, and then you have the guarantee and safety net that you know that in a year's time I'm here if you want to come back.
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic offer.
So that was an amazing offer. And I thought, it's not often that you're given opportunities like that. I'm not interested in being famous. I know that may sound difficult. I'm interested in being well known for what I do.
And there's a big difference.
Massive difference. I don't care about people coming up to me on the bus or the tube and saying, "Oh, you're not," in the supermarket. Sorry, I'm a little bit focused on going and finding, a rotisserie chicken and making sure I get the right one. I'm less interested in having somebody come out to me, "Oh, that was very funny," I don't mind. I mean, by all means, if you do see me, I'm quite friendly, but I find all that sort of thing a little bit awkward, to be honest. And I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in hopefully doing a really good job. And I saw a niche in the market. And the niche in the market, and something I said right after we'd finished, was if I do end up in the media, it's going to be current affairs, business, property focused. I'm not interested in going and being seen falling out of nightclubs and all that stuff. I don't care for that. If that's what you want to do, if you want to be famous, fine, go and do it. I have nothing against it. That's not me. I'm not interested.
So now you're in the cut and thrust of the current
I think I answered your
world.
question.
No, absolutely. And I think it was a great answer. But you're now in there, in the radio studio. You've got the politicians coming in. You've got the people that are making the news. And what sort of challenges does that set you? Or again, can you draw on all these skills you had as a trader, negotiating all these deals, to think, right, let's just go for it here?
One of the things that I think that I bring to the table is that I'm not a trained journalist, nor do I want to be. Having said that, there are a lot of people who are formulating our opinions, collectively, our opinions about everything, who have never done the job. At least when we talk about the financial crisis in which we find ourselves, I've been there, I've done it. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily right, but it means I think that I'm going to ask better questions. I'm going to get to the real truth as to what really went wrong, and hopefully I can help you make up your mind as to whether your gut reaction on something is right. So, isn't it extraordinary that you can have no experience of something, yet immediately you will formulate an opinion as to whether you agree or disagree or like or dislike or whatever it is. And I do think that it's my job and people like me to help you to think about why it is that you've come to that conclusion. And if I can ask better questions, more insightful questions, or questions with experience, then I think that I'll get better answers. And also it means that I can see through an answer when it's a load of politicians flim-flam, and they love all that. I mean, you know, the guff that sometimes comes out of their mouths as to, you know, what this or what, you know, they're all politically angled, and I'm not a political beast, really. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm not somebody who is truly partisan. I hate this view that you have to be a certain kind of person and have a certain group of beliefs, and therefore you can't waver from them. So I'd make a terrible politician, by the way, because I couldn't go in and vote against something that I didn't think was right. So when I look at what the coalition's doing, some of it is great, some of it is neutral, and some of it is truly awful. Similarly, when I look at what the opposition has to offer, some of it is great, some of it is truly awful, some of it forgets the past, and some of it doesn't look to the future. I mean, whatever way you look at it, it's my job, I think, in that radio station to pick an issue, forget whatever partisan view I may or may not have, focus on that issue and try and work out what is the right conclusion, not only for me, but also to give you, the listener, as much information as you can so that you can then make up your mind, which might be different from my view. It's not my job to persuade you to agree with me, other than having a conversation in the same way that you might, I don't know, meet me in the pub and say, you know, I saw this, it's great, you know, you should really watch it. And then you're trying to get me to do that so that I may come back to you and say, you know, you said that, great, loved it. Or, oh no, it's terrible. So I have to say, I have never had a job that I enjoy as much as being on the radio. It is the best job in the world, without question.
And talking about the politics there, you've outlined your own beliefs and things. You've never been drawn to really jump the fence and say, right, I've had enough of what they're saying, I'm going to join them and make a difference.
No. simply because I enjoy, if you like, having that sort of political toing and froing and being able to have that debate, if you like. But I've done every job that people love to hate you for. So I started off, I qualified in property, you can read estate agent. I then went into investment banking. Well, we all know what we think of them and normally replace the B with a W. Then I went into private equity, and we all know that according to Mr. Miliband, that's asset stripping and that's evil. Then I went on to reality TV. Well, they're ghastly. Every single one of them has to be ghastly. And now I've become a shock jock, which I'm not, and I don't think there is such a thing anymore, but anyway, that's what people read it as, or a gob on a stick, you know, when I turn up on Sky News or Radio 2, whatever it may be. And people come up with these opinions. So I've done nearly everything. So all I've got to do is either, if things go badly, I could end up as a parking attendant or as a politician. Those are the two things left, but I'm quite happy. The only kind of politician that I will do, even though I disagree with it in terms of its formulation, is if they decide that I have become the king of broadcasting, ergo need to be parachuted into the House of Lords, yes, I'll do that. Lord Max sounds brilliant.